Okay guys, prepare na po tayo. We will start with the lecture. All right, so a blessed day everyone. Welcome no to our lecture in hematology. So I will be your lecturer for hematology 1, no, for this part of hema. And just to clarify, hematology 1 includes topics about the blood collection, the red blood cells, and also the white blood cells. So ito yung maging scope ng ating lecture for this particular session, okay? For hematology 1, all right? So allow me now to share my screen so that we can actually begin with this subject. Okay, hematology 1 ito, hematology 1. And for the first part of our lecture, we are going to tackle first the venipuncture procedure. Venipuncture no, is a kind of blood collection. Okay, it is a blood collection technique, and it involves no, derivation of the blood specimen of our patient from the veins. Okay, so veins ang ating gagamitin sa para makakuha no ng blood specimen sa ating patient. Okay? So in the handouts, kindly write down muna what is the volume of blood that an average human being possesses. So this particular part of our lecture was actually a past board exam question. Okay? And the question was apparently taken from Rodax Hematology. Okay? Yan ang source no ng nakasulat dito sa PowerPoint. So again, the average human possesses how many liters of blood? So pakikopya, 5 liters of blood. 5 liters of blood. Okay? So also, don't forget the other important details about the venipuncture technique. Okay, pangalawa, ano naman po ang most common sites? Most common sites for the venipuncture technique. The correct answer to that question of mine is superficial veins of the antecubital fossa. The superficial veins of the antecubital fossa. Okay? That is where we derive the blood specimen most commonly, no? Dito sa mga superficial veins ng antecubital fossa. So let me just clarify where that antecubital fossa is. Okay? Pag sabi kasi nating ante, no? Ante means in front or harapan, no? Ante means in front or in Filipino, harapan, no? And when you say cubital, cubital pertains to the elbow area. Cubital pertains to the elbow area. So basically, pag sabi nating antecubital, it means in front of the elbow. In front of the elbow. Malinaw? So the antecubital area is actually right here. All right? This particular part of our arm. That is where the antecubital area is located. Okay? Do you see? Ayan, no? And remember that that area is being described or being called a fossa. Why? Okay, ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng fossa in the first place? Fossa means depression or kalaliman. Fossa means depression or in Tagalog, kalaliman. All right? So when you bend your arm like this, that antecubital area becomes deep, lumalalim, no? So that is why it is called antecubital fossa, because this area, this part of the arm becomes deep when you bend your arm like this, no? So it's called antecubital fossa for that reason. Malinaw ba? So may mga veins dito sa antecubital fossa na maaari natin gamitin for the venipuncture technique, no? And here in HEMA, no, hindi na natin sila papangalanan pa, no? Sapat na alam natin kung ano ba yung mga superficial, kung ano nga ba yung most common sites para sa venipuncture technique. And these are once again the superficial veins of the antecubital fossa. Okay? Guys, merong overlapping topics, no? Yung HEMA at saka yung clinical chemistry. And I believe naman, no, in your clinical chemistry, you'll be talking about the venipuncture also. So probably, doon nyo na lang siguro malalaman ano nga ba yung mga particular veins that are found in the antecubital area. Okay, but here in HEMA, sufficient na alam natin that these are the most common sites for the venipuncture. Okay? The superficial veins of the antecubital fossa. The superficial veins of the antecubital fossa. For hema, okay na ito. Okay? So also remember, what is the most common skin antiseptic? The most common skin antiseptic is 70% isopropyl alcohol. Most commonly used skin antiseptic. Okay? So it doesn't mean that this is the only one that you can use. Okay? Actually, ang nakalagay dyan, no? Most commonly used. Hindi naman sinabi na only one that you can use. Di ba? Hindi naman sinabi na ito lang ang pupwede. Ang nakalagay dyan, most commonly used. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, in practice, no, in the actual setting, you can also utilize other kinds of skin antiseptic solution. Hindi naman tayo strict na 70% isopropyl alcohol lamang. Malinaw? You can also utilize other kinds of antiseptic solution, no? Basta approved, no, ng mga authorities. Okay? Pero tandaan, kung specific kasi yung tanong sa ating board exam, syempre dapat specific din yung ating pagsagot. And according to Rodax Hematology, specifically according to Rodax Hematology, according to that book, the most commonly used is 70% isopropyl alcohol. Okay? So answer the question according to what we read in the book. Okay? And let me tell you now that in our board exams, most of the questions are book-based. Okay? Ang mga ginagamit nilang libro includes the Rodax Hematology. Kaya nga, yan din ang ginamit ko ngayon sa pagtuturo sa inyo about these things. Rodax Hematology din. Dahil nga ang mga questions sa board exams ay book-based, syempre dapat yung lecture din natin ay book-based. Okay? Maliwanag? And para sa hematology, dalawang hematology books ang commonly ginagamit nila sa paggawa ng mga questions. Yung una, kanina ko pa nabanggit, Rodax Hematology, and yung pangalawa, Hematology by Turgeon. Clinical Hematology by Mary Louise Turgeon. Okay? That is another hematology reference material. That is another hematology book. Okay? So, aside from Rodax, you should also use Clinical Hematology by Mary Louise Turgeon. Kapag may nagtatanong sa akin, no, Sir, which one is better, Rodax or Turgeon? Which one should be used for our board exam review for HEMA, Rodax or Turgeon? I always answer, you should use both of them. You should not choose just one of them. You should use both of them. Dapat pareho natin silang gagamitin. Maliwanag? Hindi ka pwedeng pumili lang ng isa, ha? Kasi class, in the board exams, makikita nyo sa mga record questions, yung ibang mga questions ay nagmula kay Rodax, samantala yung iba naman nanggaling kay Turgeon. And sabay silang nagagamit, ha, sa isang 100-item hematology exam. Sabay, pareho silang nagagamit, no? So, hindi yata tama na Rodax lang ang gagamitin at hindi rin yata tama na Turgeon lang ang gagamitin. You should use both of them. Pareho silang dapat nating ginagamit sa pag-aaral para sa HEMA. Okay? Maliwanag ito, ha? So, may mga areas ng ating lecture na galing sa Rodax, pero meron ding mga areas ng ating lecture na nagmula naman kay Turgeon. Pareho ko silang ginamit, ha, sa paggawa ng ating lecture. Pareho ko silang ginamit sa paggawa ng ating handouts, no? So, pakibasa mabuti, no, yung contents ng mga handouts na yan. Okay? Alright, so let's continue now to the important considerations. We will now discuss these important considerations one by one, ha? And tandaan, yung number one natin dyan, okay? The angle between the skin and the needle. Okay, so that is according to Rodax Hematology. Let me say again that the content of our handouts, some of the content of our handouts were derived from Rodax Hema, and this is one of them, angle between skin and needle. So, parang year 2022 yata, no? Year 2022, itinanong ito, no? At ang tamang sagot, less than 30 degrees. Less than 30 degrees. That is the correct answer. And again, that is based from Rodax Hematology. So again, if you're asked what is the correct angle between the skin and the needle, That is the correct response, less than 30 degrees. Now, in the board exams, it is necessary to answer according to the book, okay, according to what we have read. Pero class, in practice, in the actual setting, you really don't have to use a protractor just to make sure that that angle is followed. Do you agree with me? Di ba? In practice, hindi naman talaga kailangan, di ba? At saka ang weirdo mo naman, sobrang weird mo naman kung magpa-protractor ka pa para sa blood extraction. Ma'am, huwag kang malikot. I-measure ko muna yung angle. Of course, you don't do that anymore kasi you will appear very weird, di ba? But in practice, yun nga, no? Tinatansya na lang natin yung angle na yan, ine-estimate na lang natin. Okay? Pero guys, tandaan, sa board exams ha, kung ano ang nakasulat sa libro, ganun tayo dapat sasagot. Okay? Para maka-add tayo ng points sa ating score. Now, another, we have also number 2, tourniquet application. Tourniquet application. Remember, there are 3 important considerations under number 2. Letters A, B, and C. And we'll talk about them, no? Letter A muna tayo, class. We have there the length of time. The length of time. So, pakisulat. Okay, that is less than 1 minute, less than 1 minute, or less than 60 seconds. Okay? You should apply the tourniquet on the arm of your patient for no more than 1 minute, no? So, dapat less than 1 minute. Alright? So, that is less than 1 minute. Or less than 60 seconds. And remember that if you do not follow the correct length of time, the following will be the effects on your blood specimen. Okay? So pag-usapan natin, class, ano nga ba yung mga possible effects ng prolonged tourniquet application? And for our review, let us make use of this mnemonic, HHS. HHS. So what do these letters mean? Pakisulat. Letter H stands for hemolysis. And then another letter H stands for hemoconcentration. And then the last is letter S, which means shortened coagulation times. Shortened coagulation times. So always remember, HHS, these are the effects of prolonged tourniquet application. HHS, hemolysis, hemoconcentration, and shortened coagulation times. So many years ago, there was a question regarding this topic, no? The prolonged tourniquet application. So parang ang tanong daw, parang ganito yung lumabas, ano daw yung pwedeng maging epekto ng prolonged tourniquet application on the level of the von Willebrand factor? Let me repeat the question, ha? Ano daw po yung pwedeng maging effect ng prolonged tourniquet application, effect ng prolonged tourniquet application on the level of the von Willebrand factor. Von Willebrand factor, okay? And apparently, that question was taken also from Rodax Hematology. And guys, pakibasa naman yung additional note natin na nasa loob ng box dyan sa handout sa atin. Sa may bandang ilalim ng shortened coagulation times, just underneath that, no? That letter S, yung shortened coagulation times, okay? And then hanapin yung word na stasis there. Nakita ba? Stasis. Okay, so what does stasis mean, no? Or how is it being described? The word stasis. Stasis is a condition in which venous blood flow is slowed, okay? In stasis, there's the slowing down of the venous flow. And because of stasis, there would be local accumulation of both the factor 8 and the von Willebrand factor. Yung VWF na inyong nakikita dyan, that stands for von Willebrand factor. And yun nga ang sabi, no? Kapag daw prolonged ang tourniquet application, magkakaroon daw ng stasis of the flow of blood. And because of that event, what will eventually happen is there will be local accumulation of the factor 8 and the von Willebrand factor, okay? And because of the local accumulation of these two, there will be false shortening of the coagulation or of the clotting times. Okay? So, guys, pag sinabi natin local accumulation, what does it mean? Okay, pag sinabi nating accumulated yung isang particular substance or particular chemical in a medium halimbawa, ang ibig sabihin nun increase yung level ng substance na yan, no? So ang tanong dati sa exams, ano daw ang pwedeng maging epekto ng prolonged tourniquet application sa level ng von Willebrand factor? At ang sagot, increase. Increase in level. Again, ang sagot, increased level. There would be increase in level. Okay? Kasi ang sabi ni Rodax, in prolonged tourniquet application, there will be stasis of the flow of blood. And because of that, magkakaroon naman ng local accumulation ng both factor 8 and von Willebrand factor. Okay? So, ang sagot dun sa tanong dati, ano daw yung pwede maging epekto ng prolonged tourniquet application sa level ng VWF? Ang sagot, increase level. Okay? Maliwanag? Increase level. Ngayon, sa board exams na yun, ang itinanong lang ay si von Willebrand factor. Sa aking pagkakaalala, hindi naman tinanong yung factor 8. Pero guys, dalawa, no? Dalawa yung nakalagay kay Rodax na tataas. Von Willebrand factor and factor 8. Okay? Pakialala na although dalawa yung nakalagay kay Rodax, isa lang yung tinanong, yung von Willebrand factor lang. Malay natin, no, baka sa batch ninyo, si factor 8 naman ang itanong. Okay? Siya naman ang lumabas. Okay? Malinaw na? So always remember, ha? These are the effects of prolonged tourniquet application, and one of the effects includes shortened coagulation times, which is brought about by increase in the level of the factor 8 and the von Willebrand factor. Okay? Now, before I go to the next topic, let me ask you a question regarding your practice, no, in phlebotomy in your internship. Okay? So, tingin mo na dito sa PowerPoint, and wag nang idodrawing, ha? Wag nang kokopyahin, hindi naman kailangan. Okay? Pero pakinggan ako sa aking mga susunod na i-discuss. Okay? So, what we see right now in front of us are the different parts of a syringe. Okay? So, nandyan ang needle, nandyan yung hub, nandyan yung barrel, and yung plunger ng syringe. So, guys, as you can remember, which of these different parts of the syringe, alright, is the indicator that you have actually hit the vein of the patient? Sige nga, di ba? Nandito yung needle, yung hub, yung barrel, and yung plunger. So, of these different parts of the syringe, what do you remember to be the indicator that you have already hit the vein of the patient? Alin dyan? Yung hub. Alright, yung hub, no? Tama, no? The hub is the indicator that you have already punctured the vein of the patient. Okay? Kapag meron ng dugo na pumasok sa hub ng syringe, kapag meron ng blood sa hub ng syringe, that is already an indication that you have already hit the vein of the patient. That is correct, no? So, my next question is this. Okay, subukang sagutin, ha? Basing from what you know lang. Pag mali, edi itatama natin. Okay? Ganun naman, di ba? Siyempre, pag nagre-review, meron tayong posibleng mga maging errors, no? Sa pagsagot ng mga questions. Ganun talaga, nagre-review pa lang, di ba? So, pag mali, itatama ko naman. Sasabihin ko sa inyo yung tama. Para pag lumabas sa boards, hindi na tayo magkakamali. Okay? Alright. So, my question to you is this, no? Let us say you're performing the venipuncture technique already. You're drawing the blood specimen of your patient. You are about to draw the blood specimen of your patient. My question is, when should you really release the tourniquet from the arm? Again, when should you really release the tourniquet from the arm of your patient? Is it A, once the blood has already entered the hub of the syringe? Is it B, once you have already completed filling up the barrel of the syringe with blood? O sige nga, kailan ba dapat talaga nire-release ang tourniquet? Again, letter A, if there is already blood in the hub of the syringe. Letter B, is it when you have already filled up the barrel of the syringe with blood? When is the correct time? Letter A or letter B? Is it letter A or letter B for you? Okay, ang correct answer ay letter A as in apple. Letter A. Once the blood has already entered the hub of the syringe, Once the blood is already in the hub, you release the tourniquet first. And then after that, you derive more blood by pulling up the plunger of the syringe. Is that clear? Again, the correct time to release the tourniquet is when the blood has already entered the hub of the syringe. Pag dumating na yung time na yan, pag meron ng dugo sa hub, release the tourniquet muna. And then saka pa lamang ipupull up yung plunger ng syringe to draw more blood. That is the correct time. Maliwanag na? Okay. Kasi yung ginagawa ng iba, mali, no? Ang ginagawa ng iba, pinupuno muna nila ng dugo yung plunger na, pinupuno muna nila ng dugo yung barrel ng syringe, yung barrel, no? Yung barrel ng syringe, and then kapag puno na ito, saka pa lamang i-release yung tourniquet. That is wrong. Mali yun, ha? That is wrong. Why? Kasi class, ang iniiwasan natin dito ay prolonged tourniquet application. Remember once again that the tourniquet should only be applied for less than 1 minute. So, kung ang ginawa mo, ganito, no? Okay, kung halimbawa ang ginawa mo, pinuno mo muna ng dugo yung barrel ng syringe before releasing the tourniquet, you might have applied the tourniquet for too long already. Maliwanag ba? Kasi guys, try to realize this, ha? Prior to the insertion of the needle into the antecubital fossa, the tourniquet has already been applied on the arm of the patient. Hindi ba? So guys, no, kung ang ginawa natin, kung ang gagawin natin, pupunuin muna natin ng dugo yung barrel ng syringe before releasing the tourniquet. Pag ganyan na ginawa natin, we might have applied the tourniquet for too long already. Masyado nang matagal. Maliwanag? So, again, para makaiwas tayo dyan, we release the tourniquet immediately after the blood has already entered the hub of the syringe. Okay? Kasi pag ang ginawa natin, pinuno muna natin yan, baka yung tourniquet masyado nang matagal na naka-apply. And this can affect, no, our analysis. Kasi pwedeng mahemolize yung ating blood specimen, pwedeng merong hemoconcentration, or merong pag-shorten ng mga coagulation times if we apply the tourniquet for too long. Okay? So again, the correct time to release the tourniquet is when the blood has already entered the hub of the syringe. Okay? So remember that, no? So kung mali ang ating nagagawa ng internship, no, in practice, so baguhin na natin yan, no, pag tayo ay RMT na. Okay? Anyway, yun naman talaga ang role ko dito, di ba? Sabihin sa inyo yung tama. Okay. Now, disclaimer lang, ha? Hindi ako perfect na medtech. Hindi ako perfect na phlebotomist, no? I just really have to tell you what is correct. Yun naman talaga yung tama, no? And before, nagkakamali din ako sa pag-extract ng blood, no? Dati, akala ko dapat pinupuno talaga, no? Yung ng dugo muna yung barrel before releasing the tourniquet. Akala ko yun ang tama dati, no? Akala ko okay lang yun. But it turned out, I was wrong, no? So, ngayong alam na natin yung tama, wag na natin ulitin, okay? Alright, no? So, that is my role here, ha? My role here is not only to guide you to your on your board exam journey, but my other role here is to correct those things, no, that were done wrongly in the clinical laboratory. Yung mga wrong things na na-observe natin before. Okay? Itatama natin yan dito sa lecture. Okay? So, wag sana magagalit, ha, wag sana mo-offend yung mga nakakapag-practice ng mali tapos i-correct natin dito sa lecture. Pasensya na, but that is really my role here, ha. Sabihin sa inyo kung ano ang tama, okay? So sana walang ma-offend, ha. Okay. So next, we have also your letter B. Letter B, class, is the distance to the intended venipuncture site. So guys, ang tanong dati, what is the correct distance to the intended venipuncture site? So ito nga, no, 3 to 4 inches, no? And I think in clinical chemistry, itinatanong din yata ito, no? Yung 3 to 4 inches na yan. So pakitandaan, no? But in one of the board exams before, okay, according to one of the reports, wala doon yung 3 to 4 inches sa mga choices. So ang tanong, what is the correct distance of that tourniquet application from the intended venipuncture site? So pagtingin daw ng ibang mga students do sa mga choices, pagtingin daw nila, wala daw yung 3 to 4 inches among the choices. Pero class, nandoon ang alternative. So, sakali man nawala yung 3 to 4 inches in the choices, your alternative answer is 7.5 to 10 centimeters. 7.5 to 10 centimeters. Remember that 3 to 4 inches and 7.5 to 10 centimeters are almost the same. Magkaiba lang sila ng unit but these distances are almost similar to one another. Halos pareho lang yan. So, pwede mong isagot ang 7.5 to 10 centimeters kung sakali mang wala doon ang 3 to 4 inches sa mga choices. Maliwanag ba? Okay. Ganun lang talaga sa board exams, no? Pagka minsan kasi hindi natin makikita yung mga eksaktong na aral natin sa ating libro, no? So in such scenarios, just look for the alternative answer, okay? So again, that is for your letter B, and let's now continue. Another is your letter C. Okay, concerning letter C, we have there the steps to follow in the proper rubber tourniquet application. The steps to follow in the proper rubber tourniquet application. Okay, so everything about it are already in your notes. And remember, in the past, there were also questions about that. So parang ang tinanong daw, parang ganito, no? Binigay yung mga steps, okay? And then, parang naka-shuffle yung mga steps. And then in the board exams, the students were asked to arrange them in the proper order or in the proper sequence. Ganun daw, okay? So, yan daw ang lumabas dati sa exams. So, pakiaral ulit, no, para sa inyong board exams, yung mga nakalagay sa letter C, no? So, siguro naman, kahit hindi nyo rin na nabasa, halimbawa, hindi nyo na-read sa handout sa atin yan, no? Palagay ko naman, kaya nyo pa rin sagutin yung question about the steps to follow. Kasi class, lahat naman kayo ay mga graduates na, di ba? Tapos na kayo ng internship. So, I suppose, marunong naman kayo mag-apply ng tourniquet, no? Then again, just to be safe, can you read also these different steps to follow for proper rubber tourniquet application in your free time, okay? So, that's it. We're through already with number 2. And to recap, nakakadalawa na tayo, no, sa mga important considerations. The first one that we discussed was the angle between the skin and the needle. At pangalawa, tapos na natin tourniquet application. Okay? So, allow me now to continue. We now go to your number 3. Most common needle size used. Most common needle size used for adult venipuncture. So, pakisulat please in your handouts. That is 21 gauge. 21 gauge with the length of 1 inch. 21 gauge with the length of 1 inch. And remember that the gauge number will tell you about the bore size of the needle. Okay? Again, the gauge number will tell you about the bore size of the needle. By the way, ano nga palang spelling ng word na gauge? O sige nga. Okay, anong spelling ng gauge? G-A-U-G-E. So, you say gauge, no? Given that spelling, ang pronunciation naman ay gauge, no? G-A-U-G-E. Pero ang pronunciation ay gauge. Hindi gauge, okay? It's gauge, okay? So, gauge. And remember that the gauge number tells us about the bore size of the needle. And look at me now. Look at me. Okay. The higher the gauge number, the smaller the bore size. The higher the gauge number, the smaller the bore size. And the lower the gauge number, the larger the bore size. And the lower the gauge number, the larger the bore size. Okay? So, if the gauge number of the needle is 23 gauge, while the other needle is 21 gauge naman, which of the two needles have a larger bore size? Can you please answer that? Halimbawa, yung isang needle, 23 gauge yung number, samantala yung isa naman, 21 gauge. Which of the two needles have a larger bore size? Yung 23 o yung 21 gauge? 21 gauge. 21 gauge. Very good, no? And let's say, let me give you another question. Let's say the gauge number of one needle is 19, while the other one is 21 gauge. So, which of the two needles have a larger bore size? Yung merong 21 gauge na number o yung merong 19 gauge na number? Siyempre, yung 19 gauge. 19 gauge. Okay? Do you follow? So, tandaan, the higher the gauge number, the smaller the bore size, and the lower the gauge number, the larger the bore size. Okay, is that clear? So again, 23 gauge needle has a smaller bore size than 21, and 19 gauge needle has a larger bore size than 21. Okay? So wag kakalimutan. So number 4 naman, number 4 is a reminder to us. The phlebotomist must never puncture a patient more than twice. The phlebotomist must never puncture a patient more than twice. So hanggang 2 beses lamang pwede mag-try ang isang phlebotomy sa blood extraction, no? So let us say you are the phlebotomist and you tried, no? You tried extracting the blood specimen from the left arm of your patient, okay? And at that time, you were unsuccessful, okay? Hindi ka nakakuha ng dugo sa left arm. Are you allowed to try again? Yes, pwede pa, no? But on the other arm naman. Not on the same arm, okay? On the other arm naman, okay? So, on the other arm, so right arm na yon, no? On the other arm, you tried again. But unfortunately, for the second time, you failed again. Okay? Maybe it's not your day, di ba? Okay? Minsan nangyari yan, di ba? Parang minamalas tayo, no, sa duty, no? Ang daming mga nagiging kapalpakan, no? Pero yun nga, no? Kung halimbawa nangyari yan sa atin, no? Second time, hindi pa rin nakakuha, are we allowed to try again? No. No, hanggang 2 beses lang, okay? If at the second time you are you still failed, no, in drawing the blood specimen of your patient, you are to endorse that patient to another phlebotomist already. You're not allowed to try again, okay? Pag pangalawang beses ka na hindi pa rin nakakakuha, mag-endorse ka na sa ibang phlebotomist, okay? And guys, no, kailangan medyo ibaba natin ang pride natin dito, ha? Okay? So, 'di ba? Yung iba kasi mga phlebotomists, kaya ayaw nilang mag-endorse kasi may pride, no? May pride, no? Syempre, 'di ba? Pag nag-endorse ka, parang nakakahiya naman, 'di ba? Tapos baka pagchismisan ka pa sa laboratory. Banu yan, 'di ba? Hindi marunong kumuha ng dugo, 'di ba? So, minsan yung pride ang nangunguna sa atin, no? Kaya ayaw natin mag-endorse. Pero let me repeat, mali yun, ha? Hanggang 2 beses lamang talaga po pwedeng mag-try. If at the second try, hindi ka pa rin nakakuha, ibaba mo na ang pride mo, mag-endorse ka na. Okay? Endorse that to another phlebotomist. Okay? Maliwanag na? Okay. And let me say again, hindi po ako perpektong medtech, ha? Nung aking kabataan, no? Nung mga panahon na marami pa akong buhok. Okay, nung aking kabataan, no, minsan, no, may mga nangyari din akong, may mga nagagawa din akong hindi akma or hindi tama. Halimbawa, no, dati nakaka-3 kuha ako, no, minsan nakaka-4 akong kuha sa isang patient, no, hanggat hindi nakakuha, walang susuko, di ba? Parang ganyan, di ba? Kasi nakakahiya naman mag-endorse, di ba? But that is wrong pala. Mali pala yon, no? Hanggang 2 beses ka lang pwedeng mag-try. Maliwanag yun, ha? Okay, so if at the second time, nag-fail ka pa rin, endorse that patient to another phlebotomist. Okay? Ibababa mo yung pride mo. Okay? Ganun talaga yung rules, no? So number 5 naman, some of the causes of specimen hemolysis. We're going to talk about this as well, no? So there are 5 examples of causes of a hemolyzed blood specimen. The first one is prolonged tourniquet application. Okay? Another is moisture or contamination. By the way, can you please recite now? Can you please tell me, kahit i-chat nyo na lang, ano nga ba ang correct length of time for tourniquet application? Ano nga ba yan? Less than 1 minute. Very good. And walang titingin sa notes, ha? Without glancing back at your notes, kindly tell me now, what are the 3 effects of prolonged tourniquet application? Ano-ano mga yan? Tama. HHS. HHS. And these are hemolysis. Tama, di ba? Hemolysis. Hemoconcentration and shortened coagulation times. Hemolysis. Hemoconcentration and shortened coagulation times. Tama, no? Tama. Okay. So again, one of the reasons for a hemolyzed blood specimen is prolonged tourniquet application. So number 2, bullet number 2, moisture or contamination in the blood collection tube. So remember that moisture can lead to hemolysis. Okay? Contamination can also lead to that. So, in order to avoid that, um, siguraduhin mo na patutuyuin mo muna yung alcohol sa antecubital fossa before you insert the vein into the antecubital fossa, no? I'm sorry, before you insert the needle into the vein in the antecubital fossa. Okay, let me repeat that, no? Before you insert the needle into the vein. Okay? So, siguraduhin mo muna na nag-dry na, okay, yung skin ng patient, no? Na wala na yung alcohol before inserting the needle. Okay? And this is again a reminder to us, especially yung mga nagmamadali, yung mga phlebotomists na laging parang merong date, parang merong lakad, di ba? Lagi na lang nagmamadali, no? And yung iba diyan, no, sa kakamadali, habang basang-basa pa ng alcohol, yung antecubital fossa, tinutusok na yung patient, okay? And guys, this can cause hemolysis. Pag ginawa natin yan, pwedeng mahemolize yung blood specimen. Eh di ba sa hema, very unacceptable talaga ang hemolyzed blood specimen, di ba? Okay, so to prevent that from happening, make sure that the alcohol has already that the alcohol has already evaporated from the antecubital fossa before inserting the needle into the arm. Maliwanag ba? Okay. Especially kasi pag nagmamadali tayo, di ba? Minsan kahit basa pa ng alcohol, tumutusok na. And guys, bukod sa hemolysis kasi, bukod doon sa hemolysis, pwede rin kasi makaramdam ng um, pain yung patient because of that, di ba? Yun, di ba? Ikaw kaya, may sugat ka, buhusan ng alcohol, di ba? Di ba masakit yun, di ba? Ay, masasaktan ka rin, di ba? So again, that is number 2. And then number 3, using needles with 2 small bores. Okay, that's another reason. And then excessive agitation. Excessive agitation. So remember that if you have already obtained the blood specimen of the patient, if you have already placed the blood specimen in the blood collection tube, the next thing that you should do, of course, is to mix the blood and anticoagulant inside the tube. Okay? But how do you do it? Paano nga ba ang tamang pamamaraan ng pagmix ng blood and anticoagulant inside the tube? What is the proper way? Ang recommendation ng mga manufacturers ng mga tubes ito, ang recommendation nila, inversion. Inversion of the tube. Okay? Not shaking, but inversion. Kasi guys, by inverting the tube properly, by doing it properly, you will prevent hemolysis. Okay? So guys, paano ba ang tama? Paano ba ang correct way ng pagmix ng blood at ng anticoagulant? Okay guys, no? Tingin dito. Halimbawa, ito na, hawak ko na yung tube, nakapag-extract na ako ng dugo. So how do I properly mix the blood and anticoagulant inside? So kindly look by inversion, no? So please look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is how you should do it. Okay? And never this. Wag ganito Yung iba kasi ang ginagawa nila, okay, sinishake nila, no, yung blood collection tube. Ganyan Oh, yes. Okay? So, wag gagayahin nito This is wrong. Because this can cause hemolysis of the blood specimen. Is that understood? Okay? And then, others do it this way. Okay, tingin ulit sa akin Pag ganito naman, no? Okay, pag ganyan, no? Para nakikipag-samurai, di ba? Okay, this is also wrong. Mali din yan, no? So, the proper way, again, of mixing the blood and anticoagulant is by inversion. Okay? So, inversion talaga. Not this way and not this way. Okay? Kasi ito, guys, itong mga actions ito, this can lead to hemolysis. Kasi pag ganyan, or pag ganito, agitation yan. Excessive agitation ang mga yan. Is that understood? So, wag gagayahin yung mga nakikita nating mali sa laboratory, ganyan, no? Do it properly. Kaya nga, 'di ba, sabi ko sa inyo kanina, one of my roles here, aside from being your reviewer, no, para sa board exams niyo, one of my roles here is to tell you what are the correct things to do in the actual setting. Kasi nung internship natin, sabihin ko na yung totoo, meron tayong mga pwedeng na-observe na mali, 'di ba? Mga maling gawain, no? So, ito na yung tamang pagkakataon na i-correct natin yung mga maling yan. Okay? Okay, katulad kanina, 'di ba? yung pagpupuno muna ng barrel ng syringe before releasing the tourniquet. Mali yun, no? And then this one or this way ng pag-mix ng blood and anticoagulant, this is wrong. Okay? So, ito na ang tamang panahon na i-correct natin yung mga yan. Okay? Alright? So, huwag kakalimutan. And then, number 5, frothing of the blood sample. Frothing of the blood sample. So, pag nagkaroon ng froth or ng bubbles, yung ating specimen, especially dun sa barrel, no? Most likely, hemolyzed na yan. Okay? And we cannot use that anymore. We cannot use that anymore for the hematologic analysis. So, you have to draw another blood specimen na. Okay? So, once again, these are the reasons for specimen hemolysis. Kindly remember them all. Okay? So, I think we're done with our number 5. Let's now continue. Another important consideration would be, okay, the proper handling, no, of the sharp objects or the sharp instruments that we have utilized for the venipuncture technique. Okay, so let me read it for you. Needles and other sharp objects like lancets and broken tubes contaminated with blood and other possibly infectious materials must not be manipulated in any way. So, nakasulat sa inyong handouts, examples of such manipulations. Examples of such manipulations include resheathing, bending, clipping, or removing the sharp object. Okay? So, remember that resheathing or recapping of the needle is generally not allowed, no? Resheathing or recapping of the needle is generally not allowed or not recommended. The problem there is, pag nag-recap kasi tayo or pag nag-resheath, pag nag-recap tayo, pwede nating matusok yung ating sarili. Okay? Supposedly, after the blood extraction process, the used needle, no? The used needle should be removed by a machine. Okay? Pakita ko yung itsura ng machine, ha? Do not take a screenshot of this anymore. No need. Okay? Pero kindly look at the picture flash on the screen now. Okay, so ang machine na yan po yung tinatawag natin na needle cutting machine. Needle cutting machine. So supposedly, after the blood extraction process, the used needle should be inserted into this machine, and the blade of this machine will cut off the needle for us, no? Para hindi tayo mapahamak, para hindi tayo maaksidente. Okay? So, dapat gumagamit tayo ng ganitong machine, needle cutting machine, needle cutting machine. Now, remember guys, no, that in the laboratory, in most clinical laboratory, especially here in our country, walang ganitong machine, no, 'di ba? Hindi ganon ka widely available, especially sa ating bansa, ano? Hindi ganong ka widely available itong machine na ito, itong needle cutting machine na 'yan. Okay? And so, guys, in the clinical laboratory, we are compelled, no, to recap or to resheath the needle. Okay? Now, meron namang allowance na binigay dyan si Rodax Hematology o yung Rodax Hematology natin, no? So, tignan nyo to, ha? Resheathing or recapping is allowed only when there are no alternatives or when recapping is required by particular medical procedures. So, ibig sabihin yan, kung talagang kinakailangan, no? If we are compelled really, no, to recap the needle, then pwede naman tayo mag-recap. But remember, if we are to recap, we should use the one-handed method of recapping the needle. Okay? So, pakibasa yung susunod na bullet in your notes. Recapping is allowed by use of a method other than the traditional two-handed procedure. Other than the traditional two-handed procedure. Meaning, hindi dapat two-handed procedure yung ating ginagamit. Okay? Naintindihan ba? Dapat hindi two-handed method. Dapat daw, ang gagamitin natin, kung sakali man na kailangan talaga mag-recap, no? Halimbawa, wala kayong needle cutting machine sa laboratory, no? Kung talagang kinakailangan mag-recap, kung talaga mako-compel or mafo-force tayo mag-recap, then we should recap the needle using the one-handed method. Huwag daw two-handed procedure. Maliwanag ba ito? Okay. So guys, no? Tingin dito sa harapan. Alright. So paano ba yung one-handed method? Ito siya, no? Pakita ko muna. Ayan. Okay. So please look now. Okay. So in the one-handed method, what you must do is, after the blood extraction process, you place the cap of the needle on a flat surface. And then after that, using only a single hand, you're going to insert the needle into the cup like this. Okay, ganyan, no? Ganyan ang tamang pagre-recap. Ulitin ko ha. You place the cap of the needle on a flat surface, and then you're going to insert the needle in it, okay, using only a single hand. Okay? Isang kamay lang yung dapat nating ginagamit. Maliwanag ba? Okay. Kaya nga ang tawag dito sa procedure na ito ay one-handed method, one-handed technique. Okay? Naintindihan? So, ulitin ko ha. After the blood extraction process, supposedly dapat hindi tayo magre-recap or magre-resheath ng needle. Okay? Dapat daw gagamit tayo ng needle cutting machine, alright, that will cut off the needle for us. So may blade yung machine na yan and it will cut the needle for us, no? Para hindi tayo ma-aksidente. Hindi natin ma-puncture yung ating sarili. Malinaw ba? Okay. Now, if there is really a need to recap the needle, say for example, hindi available ang needle cutting machine sa laboratory ninyo, kung halimbawa walang needle cutting machine and you will be compelled, you will be forced to recap the needle, recap the needle the proper way. At ang proper way ng pagre-recap ng needle ay ito, yung one-handed method na tinatawag. Okay? One-handed method. So, ganyan. Okay? So, guys, napaka-importante nito kasi maaari nitong maprotektahan, no, yung ating life, yung ating health. Kasi class, paano na lang kapag ang patient mo ay merong nakakahawang sakit, no? Halimbawa, STD, ganyan, no? Or isang disease, no, that can be transmitted by needle prick, di ba? So guys, ito yung tamang pamamaraan, one-handed method. Ngayon, ano naman po yung hindi natin dapat ginagawa? Yung two-handed technique, no? Yung two-handed method. Ito yon ha? Please look. Yan. Okay, yan. Yan ang tinatawag nating the two-handed procedure, two-handed technique. And this is very wrong. Kasi class, if we are to recap the needle using this method, we might puncture our own fingers. Okay? And especially kapag pagod na pagod ka na, di ba? Pag pagod na pagod ka na, minsan nawawalan ka na ng, kumbaga parang nawawalan ka na ng, parang nawawalan ka na ng tamang paghawak dun sa kamay mo or dun sa material na hinahawakan mo. So especially if you're tired, pwedeng mangyari na ma-puncture mo ang iyong sarili. So again, do not practice this ha. Yung tinatawag ni Rodax na two-handed procedure. If in case walang needle cutting machine sa laboratory para ma-protect ang sarili, practice this one, no? The one-handed technique, the one-handed procedure, one-handed technique of recapping the needle. Okay? Dapat hindi tayo nagre-recap eh. Kaya lang, ang katotohanan, hindi naman ganun ka-widely available yung needle cutting machine. Diba? So, if we are to recap the needle, do it this way, no? Yung proper way. Malinaw na? Okay. So, last na lang para sa ating discussion for the important considerations. We have now your number 7. Okay, number 7, check the sharps container regularly. And remember that the most common cause of a needle puncture or a puncture from other sharp objects is improper disposal. So underline or encircle the last sentence now. Ito, no? The most common cause of a needle puncture or a puncture from other sharp objects. Underline now or encircle that area. And remember once again that the most common cause of these cases is improper disposal. Okay? Improper disposal. So that's it. We have already finished our discussions on the important considerations related, no, to venipuncture. The important considerations that are related to venipuncture. Okay? So we now proceed to our next discussion. Our next topic this afternoon would be the anticoagulants. Okay? And for the anticoagulants, what we're going to discuss are the following, no? For HEMA, these are the anticoagulants that we're going to tackle, the following, no? Number one is EDTA or EDTA. Number two is heparin. And number three is 3.2% sodium citrate. So all of these three, all of them, no, will be discussed here in this subject. Kaya lang class, aside from those, we are going to add additional kinds of anticoagulants. So pakiabangan din sila. And these anticoagulants might also be asked in HEMA. Kaya lang yung tatlong primary topics natin for the anticoagulants are them. EDTA, heparin, and sodium citrate. 3.2% sodium citrate. Okay? So let us now begin with number one, EDTA. EDTA. EDTA stands for ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. Ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, no? It's EDTA or simply EDTA. EDTA or simply EDTA, okay? O malay mo, no? Magkaroon ka ng daughter someday, no? And para maging medtech na medtech ang dating ng family mo, no? Pwede mo siyang pangalanan ng Edta Marie. Okay? 'Di ba? Edta Marie, all right? Para ano, no? Parang medtech na medtech ang dating ng pamilya mo, no? Oh, how cute naman your baby. What is her name, no? Edta Marie, no? Okay, 'di ba? Edta, no, is an anticoagulant. And remember, let us now fill out the blanks at the right column, ha? Okay, remember also the optimal concentration of this anticoagulant. It is 1.5 milligrams per ml of blood. 1.5 milligrams per ml of blood. Okay, and can you write it down? Now also remember the action of this anticoagulant. Its action is chelation of calcium. And I believe in your handouts at the lower portion, you'll be able to read there the definition, no, of this term, no, of this chelation. Okay, ano nga bang ibig sabihin ng chelation? The formation of a ring-shaped molecular complex in which a metal ion is covalently bound. Nandiyan na yung definition ng chelation, as well as the definition of delta check, reflex test, and also parameter. Okay? So, can you read them as well? Now, kaya ko kailangan sabihin yung meaning ng chelation kasi ganito, no? Sa ibang mga reference materials, sa ibang mga libro, ang nakalagay na action ng EDTA, binding of calcium. Binding of calcium. And I want you to know, I want you to understand that it's okay. It's all right. Okay lang yun, no? So, pwedeng chelation of calcium, maaari yan, at pwede ring binding of calcium. Pwede rin yun. Chelation of calcium, or pwede ring binding of calcium. Kasi anyway, chelation naman is a particular way of binding ions, di ba? Chelation is just a specific way, a particular way of binding ions. So you could say chelation of calcium, pwede yan, at you could also say, and you can also say binding of calcium. That's applicable. That's also okay. Pwede rin yun, no? So I just made it more specific, kaya ang ginamit ko dito ay chelation of calcium. Ginawa ko lang mas specific yung term na ginamit sa action, okay? So next, another, don't forget also the important reminders in using EDTA. They are also in your notes. Pakihanap na lang. Ayan. Ito yung mga important reminders naman, no? For the EDTA usage. Okay? So, bullet number 1, blood specimens for CBC must be analyzed within 6 hours of collection if stored at room temperature and 24 hours if stored at 4 degrees Celsius. Okay? So, tatandaan yan, ha? Again, within 6 hours of collection if stored at room temp and 24 hours if stored at 4 degrees Celsius. And this is to minimize false values or false results. And then another, blood smear should be made within 3 hours of collection. Okay? Can you remember that? Because later on, we'll talk about peripheral blood smear preparation. So remember bullet number 2. And remember also the third bullet. Okay, let me now share this to you. One of the past board exam question was, what is the preferred anticoagulant for the platelet counts? What is the preferred anticoagulant for the platelet counts? And the correct answer is EDTA. The correct answer is EDTA. Why? Why? Because EDTA prevents platelet aggregation. EDTA prevents platelet aggregation. That is why it is a preferred anticoagulant for the platelet count. Okay? Now, another point that I need you to read also is the mean platelet volume. All right? Mean platelet volume. Remember that the mean platelet volume is part of our CBC or complete blood count. Okay? And CBC or complete blood count is to be done using the EDTA anticoagulant. That's why I decided, no, to put the MPV here also, no? Kasi ang MPV ay part ng CBC at ang CBC ay nagagawa natin sa pamamagitan ng EDTA anticoagulant. So remember the points that I typed there, yung mga notes natin about MPV. Listen, the mean platelet volume should be based on EDTA specimens that are between 1 to 4 hours old. Okay, so kindly encircle that, ha? It should be based on EDTA specimens that are between 1 to 4 hours old. And remember why that is. Bakit kailangan 1 to 4 hours old yung ating EDTA specimens para sa measurement ng MPV, para sa measurement ng value na ito? It is because EDTA causes swelling of platelets. Okay, EDTA causes swelling of platelets, and this swelling effect on the platelets causes approximately 20% increase in the mean platelet volume during the first hour from the time of blood collection. Okay, so that is why one should base the MPV on EDTA specimens that are already between 1 to 4 hours old. Kasi class, if we are to measure the MPV immediately, let's say during the first hour pa, no? During the first hour pa from the time of blood collection, the value of the MPV that we will obtain might be falsely increased pa, no? Sabi nga dito class, EDTA kasi causes swelling of platelets, and this swelling of platelets can lead to an approximately 20% increase, no, in the MPV value. Okay, so that is why. So remember these things as well for the mean platelet volume. Baka itanong yan sa board exams. Okay? So moving on, let us also talk about the reasons naman, okay, for the insufficient EDTA and also the reason for excessive EDTA. And let's also tackle the corresponding effects. Okay? So unahin na muna natin class ang insufficient EDTA. So the cause of insufficient EDTA is an overfilled tube. Okay? So ibig sabihin punong-puno, no? Punong-puno ng dugo yung blood collection tube to the point na hindi mo na mailagay yung takip. Okay? So overfilled yung tube, no? Tapos hindi mo na mamimix, no, yung anticoagulant saka yung blood because of that. So listen and look now at the PowerPoint presentation, ha? I'm going to show you something. This is the lavender top, okay? That is the thing that we're talking about now. And if you remember, in the lavender top, okay, or any other blood collection tube, merong label na nakalagay about the volume of blood to be placed in it. Okay? So, halimbawa, itong tube na ito, no? How much blood should you place in it? Nakalagay dito sa ilalim, 4 ml. 4 ml. Okay? Kaya, kung 4 ml ang nakalagay, wag makulit, ha? Wag makulit. Dapat 4 ml ang ilalagay mong dugo inside. Okay? Maliwanag ba? And guys, hindi sila pare-pareho. Oo, totoo yan, no? Alam nyo guys, meron akong mga na-encounter dating ibang mga tubes na ang requirement lang 3 ml. Meron naman ang iba, requirement lang 2 ml. Oo, may ganon. Oo, may ganon. Yung iba naman, ang required ay 5 ml. Yung iba naman, 6 ml. So, hindi pare-pareho. So, again, my point is, para hindi tayo magkamali, no, sa volume of blood to be taken from our patient, para hindi tayo magkamali ng blood na ilalagay sa loob ng tube, basahin muna ang label ng tube. Kasi halimbawa, 4 ml nga yung nakalagay. Tapos ang kulit mo, no? Ang kulit mo talaga, no? 5 ml pa rin ang ipinilit mong ilagay. Oh, guys, ano pwede mangyari? Clot formation. Okay? Kasi pag sobrang dami ng dugo, no? pag too much amount yung blood, no, na nandoon sa loob ng tube, ma-overpower yung EDTA anticoagulant mo. Ma-overpower yung anticoagulant na ginagamit mo, no? And it will not be able to prevent clot formation anymore. Okay? And remember especially in HEMA, remember, clotted blood specimens are unacceptable. Kasi nagkokos yan ng mga errors, di ba? Okay? And bukod doon, bukod sa nagkokos ng errors yung mga clots na yan, they can also damage our machines. So we don't want that, okay? So next, another naman would be excessive EDTA. Okay, excessive EDTA. So ano yung cause? Underfilled tube. Underfilled tube. Or in other words, short draw. Okay, so kulang naman yung dugo nilalagay mo inside. O halimbawa, ang label nakalagay 4 ml. Okay, tapos ang kulit mo talaga, no? Kulit mo, no? Okay, ang nilagay mo ay 3 ml lang or kaya 2 ml. O kulang ba yon? Oo, no? So, pag kulang naman yung blood, pag underfilled naman yung tube, too much naman yung anticoagulant. And hindi rin maganda yon, no? So, pag too much or kapag excessive yung anticoagulant, no? Pag excessive yung EDTA specifically, ano po yung pwedeng mangyari? Ano po yung mga corresponding effects? So, pakitignan and pakikopya sa notes natin, ha? One is falsely decreased hematocrit. And then another is falsely decreased ESR. And then degenerative changes in white blood cells. Degenerative changes in white blood cells. And then also falsely increased MCHC. Falsely increased MCHC. Okay? And then falsely increased platelet count. So, write all of these things down. Okay? Pakikopya sa inyong handouts. Lahat yan ay mga epekto ng underfilled tube. So, you see, masama ang sobra at masama din naman ang kulang, di ba? So, dapat yung tamang amount of blood lamang ang iyong ilalagay sa blood collection tube. Okay? Not too much, not too little, di ba? Kasi pwede maka-apekto yan sa ating blood analysis. Okay? Naintindihan? So, don't forget this part also. And I hope you have already written the important notes. Okay na ba? Okay na, no? So, let us now continue. This time, we are going to fill out the blanks at the left side of our handouts. Can you still follow ba? Okay lang, nasusundan? Okay, no? So, dito tayo class sa number 1 pa rin, EDTA. But right now, we are going to fill out the blanks at the left area of our handouts. So, first, wag pala munang kakalimutan, what is the usual form of EDTA that we make use in the lab? Ano ba yung common form ng EDTA na madalas nating ginagamit sa clinical hematology lab? Okay, it's the K2 EDTA, K2 EDTA, or the dipotassium EDTA. K2 EDTA or the dipotassium EDTA. K2 EDTA, okay? Now, ang tanong ko sa inyo, does K3 EDTA exist? Does K3 EDTA exist? Yes. K3 EDTA is what? Tripotassium EDTA. K3 EDTA is tripotassium EDTA. And remember guys that K3 EDTA does exist. Kaya lang, K3 EDTA is less commonly used. K3 EDTA is less commonly used than K2 EDTA. Okay? So, mas tatandaan ang K2 EDTA. And then, don't forget also the color of the top of the tube where you can see this anticoagulant. Of course, you all know that, diba? Okay, review lang naman ito, no? So, where can you see the EDTA? Okay, in what color of the tube? So, lavender or purple top tube. And how about the number of inversions? 8 inversions. And it is used for routine hematology determinations. So 8 inversions, pakikopya. And again, it is used for routine hematology determinations. Routine hematology determinations. Furthermore, do not forget as well that it is considered as the most commonly used blood collection tube in the hematology section. Okay? Take note that that was a past board exam question too. Most commonly used blood collection tube in HEMA. Yung last na statement, no? That was a past board exam question. Okay? And let me tell you a story related to that, no? Okay. Ganito nangyari dyan, ano? Lumabas yan sa board exams dati. And one student, no? One student related her story related her own story about this thing when it came out in the board exams. So ang tanong daw, what is the most commonly used blood collection tube in HEMA? And she answered, you know what she answered? She answered light blue top. She answered light blue top. Was she correct? Of course not. Of course not. Mali ang kanyang sinagot. Dapat lavender yung kanyang answer. Pero siguro na confused, no? Baka na mental block, 'di ba? Baka ganyan na nangyari. So what happened was, no, she realized while taking the exams, she realized that she made a mistake. But you know what? Despite realizing that she committed the mistake, she still moved on and answered the rest of the questions in HEMA. Okay? And not only that, no? After finishing hematology, she still answered the succeeding subjects. Siyempre, ang mga sumunod ay yung ISBB and histopathmetric loss, di ba? Yun yung mga last subjects natin, di ba, sa boards. So, what happened to her? Okay, because she moved on dahil hindi siya nagpatalo doon sa kanyang error, no? Dahil hindi siya nagpa-drag down sa mga errors na yan, no? What happened to her was pagkatapos ng 3 days of waiting, she emerged to be the top one of her batch with a score of around 93%. Okay? So my point is, sa board exams, kakabahan talaga kayo and there is a chance na pwede kayong ma-mental block at magkamali sa pagsagot. That is the truth of the matter. Okay? Kasi tao lang naman tayo, pare-pareho, di ba? Posible tayong magkaroon ng posible tayong kabahan sa boards, posible tayong may makalimutan, no? We all have our limitations. Ganun talaga, ha? But the thing is, no? Remember that if you commit to the mistake in the board exams, no? Okay, you should just move on from it and answer the rest of the questions na lang. Especially class sa board exams na walang erasure dapat. Kung naisagot mo na yan, kung ibigay mo na yung maling sagot na yan, hayaan mo na. Hayaan mo na. Move on ka na lang, okay? Ganun talaga, no? Nobody's perfect. Lahat naman tayo pwede magkamali, no? And pag nag-move on ka, pag nilet go mo yan, gagaan yung pakiramdam mo, and there is a strong chance that you will be able to answer the rest of the questions correctly. Kaysa magpa-drag down ka dyan. Halimbawa, ay, nagkamali ako, no? Nagkaroon ako ng mistake. So, pag yan ay inisip mo ng inisip, masisira ang confidence mo. And baka magkamali ka sa mga succeeding questions. Do you get my point? So, even if in the board exams you committed a mistake along the way, move on lang, ha? Ganun lang talaga, no? Kasi class, may mga estudyante ako before, alam nyo ba, habang nagtitake sila ng board exams, no? Yung iba sa kanila, nagkakaroon ng doubts, ng fears, ganyan, no? Kinakabahan, syempre, no? Kasi board exams yan, di ba? Yan yung last exam na ititake mo bilang medtech student, no? Yan yung pagtawid mo mula pagiging estudyante papuntang pagiging professional. So talagang nakakakaba, di ba? Nakaka-mental block, no? But yun nga, no? Yung ibang mga estudyante ko before, yung iba sa kanila umuuwi because nahihirapan sila daw sa board exams. May mga iba na hindi itinutuloy yung board exams, hindi na tinatapos. And I think that is a wrong move, no? Kasi kapag hindi mo tinapos yung board exams, hindi mo talaga makukuha yung license mo. Okay? So please do not imitate those students, ha? Kahit na mahirapan sa board exams, kahit nakabahan, move on lang, ha? Ganun lang talaga. Part yan ng pagtitake ng board exams. Okay? So, please heed my advice on this. Alright? So, let me now continue with our next discussion. Our next topic class would be heparin. Alright? Heparin. Okay. Before we start pala, no, with the heparin, let me discuss also the CBC, no, or the complete blood count, no? So, nasa handouts pa rin naman yan. And nasa EDTA pa rin tayo, no? So, CBC is complete blood count. And what is the other term, no? To the CBC. What is the other term for it? The CBC or the complete blood count is also called hemogram. Complete blood count is also called hemogram. Okay? And remember the different parameters included herein. So, nakalista na sa handouts natin yung mga RBC parameters, yung WBC parameters, and platelet parameters. And bear in mind that in the board exams, one of the questions given was about the WBC count. And then another was about the differential count. Okay? So, yung mga yan, yung WBC count and differential count, part yan no, ng WBC parameters. And I will also be discussing to you the most important details about them in the future. Now, I will be doing that. Okay? And also, remember yung mga RBC parameters din, posible ring lumabas, and also the platelet parameters. But again, let me also inform you of this. One of the other questions, one of the board exam questions before was yung other name no, ng CBC. At ito nga, hemogram. No? Complete blood count is also known as the hemogram. Okay? So, moving on, ito na talaga. Let us now discuss number 2, heparin. Okay. So, heparin class, the heparin is used at this optimum concentration. That is 15 to 20 units. 15 to 20 units. 15 to 20 units per ml of blood. So, take note that the unit of measurement for heparin is units. No? Units also. No? Unit also. Unit with a capital letter U. Unit with a capital letter U. Naintindihan? Ang unit of measurement para sa heparin ay unit, no? With the capital letter U nga lamang, capital letter U. So again, the optimal concentration is 15 to 20 units per ml of blood. Now, write also in your handouts the action of this anticoagulant. It binds antithrombin, and by doing so, it is able to inhibit thrombin and factor 10A. By binding to the antithrombin, it is able to inhibit thrombin and factor 10A. Okay? So that is how heparin prevents coagulation. Let me remind you, ang heparin ay anticoagulant pa rin naman, di ba? So unlike EDTA, unlike the first one that we discussed, heparin prevents the coagulation process by inhibiting thrombin and factor 10A. Okay? Hindi katulad ng EDTA natin, di ba? Ang EDTA kasi class, it prevents coagulation by chelation of calcium. Kasi ang calcium, ano rin yun, no? Participant din yun sa clotting process. So yung EDTA, pinipigilan niya yung clot formation by chelating calcium. Okay? By binding calcium. Pag nabind yung calcium, hindi na makikipag-participate ang calcium sa coagulation process. So ito namang heparin, it prevents the coagulation through a different mechanism. Iba naman yung action niya, no? It binds to the antithrombin, and by binding to the antithrombin, it is able to inhibit thrombin and factor 10A. By binding to the antithrombin, it is able to inhibit thrombin and factor 10A. Nakuha ba? Okay, so that is how your heparin prevents coagulation. Different, no, from EDTA. And then also remember, write this down, it is the anticoagulant of choice for the OFT and also for the blood gas studies. For the OFT and also for the blood gas studies. Now, OFT stands for Osmotic Fragility Test. OFT stands for Osmotic Fragility Test. Okay? So, wag kakalimutan yan, ha? So, later on, pag-usapan din natin yung OFT na yan. Okay? So, moving on naman, wag din kakalimutan din yung tatlong formulations ng heparin, no? That we use in the clinical hematology laboratory. That we use in the clinical laboratory in general. So, we have 3 formulations there. Tatlo yan. Ammonium heparin, sodium heparin, and lithium heparin. So, ammonium, sodium, and lithium heparin. These are the 3 formulations. And bear in mind that of the 3 formulations, the lithium heparin, okay, the lithium heparin is the most widely used. Lithium heparin is the most widely used. Lithium heparin is the most widely used. Nakuha? And then, wag din kakalimutan yung mga important reminders natin dyan in using heparin. especially yung nandun sa third bullet, di ba may box dyan? Yung nasa third bullet sa loob ng box, pakibasa yan ha, importante. Let me read it for you. Heparin causes clumping of cells, especially of platelets. Especially of platelets. And because of that, because of the clumping of platelets, in the presence of heparin, kapag heparin ang ginamit natin sa pag-quantify ng mga blood cells, maaring magdulot yung heparin ng errors. Specifically, ang pwede mangyari kapag heparin yung ating ginamit, there would be pseudo-leukocytosis and pseudo-thrombocytopenia. Let me say again ha, heparin causes clumping of platelets. Heparin causes clumping of platelets. And ang problem kasi, pag nag-clump together yung mga platelets na yan, these clumps of platelets will be counted by our machines as WBCs. Because these clumps of platelets are very large, they are very large as leukocytes. When they enter the machine, when they enter the analyzers, these clumps of platelets will be mistaken as WBCs. Naintindihan? That's why in using heparin, in using heparin for blood cell quantitation, heparin can cause pseudoleukocytosis. Okay? By the way, what is pseudoleukocytosis? What is that? Falsely elevated WBC count. At maaring mangyari yan kapag gumamit tayo ng heparin. Furthermore, heparin can also cause pseudo-thrombocytopenia. Now, ano naman po ang meaning ng pseudo-thrombocytopenia? Falsely decreased platelet count. Falsely decreased platelet count. And why will that happen? It will happen because those clumps of platelets, di ba, nag-clump together yung mga platelets, those platelets that have formed the clump will not be counted individually anymore. Nakuha ba? So, pag nag-clump together yung mga platelets na yan, hindi sila babasahin or bibilangin bilang mga platelets. They will be counted as WBCs na. Kasi ang laki-laki na ng clump eh. Maliwanag ba? And since they are in that clump, they will not be counted individual anymore. So, hindi na sila mabibilang bilang mga platelets. And for that reason, maaari magkaroon ng pseudo-thrombocytopenia. Clear na? Okay. Pseudo-thrombocytopenia, once again, is falsely decreased platelet count. This is the reason why we should not use heparin for the complete blood count. Ano nga uli ang appropriate anticoagulant para sa CBC? EDTA. Huwag heparin ha? Huwag heparin. Because heparin can cause errors no, in our CBC. Okay? Huwag kakalimutan. Nagkakos kasi siya ng clumping ng mga platelets. Now, let's move on. Let us also discuss the other side of our notes. Yung nasa left area naman, left column naman. Let us continue with our discussions on the heparin. Heparin is found in the green top tube. Heparin is found in the green top tube. And the number of inversions in the green top tube is 8. 8 inversions pa rin, no? 8. Katulad ng sa lavender top. Furthermore, don't forget also that it is used for flow cytometry. Also for plasma chemistry determinations. Also for the OFT. OFT. That stands for osmotic fragility test. Osmotic fragility test. And then lastly, blood gas studies. Blood gas studies. So, these are the different uses of your heparin anticoagulant. Okay? And remember, it is found in the green top tube. So, although we discussed heparin, although we discussed the green top tube in this subject, I want you to understand that it is not commonly used in HEMA. Okay? Ang heparin o yung green top tube ay mas madalas natin ginagamit sa clinical chemistry than in HEMA. Okay? Although that is the case, isinama pa rin natin siya dito sa HEMA kasi may mga tests sa HEMA na ito ang ginagamit na anticoagulant, no? Halimbawa ito, no, yung flow cytometry. Ang flow cytometry ay test sa hematology, okay? It is a hematological test. And in flow cytometry, heparin ang ginagamit. Kaya diniscuss rin natin siya dito sa HEMA, no? And then also ito pa, osmotic fragility test. Ito pa, osmotic fragility test. It is also a test in hematology. And since that is the case, the heparin was also included in this subject. Okay? So, naintindihan? Although heparin is most commonly used in clinical chemistry, in the clinical chemistry section, I've decided to include heparin in our lecture here in HEMA because there are some hematologic tests that make use of this anticoagulant. Yun nga, no, sila, flow cytometry and OFT. Okay? OFT stands for osmotic fragility test. Okay? Flow cytometry and OFT both use heparin as the anticoagulant. So moving on, let's continue now to our third anticoagulant in this lineup. The third one, it's 3.2% sodium citrate. 3.2% sodium citrate. Okay? Now, be careful ha. Meron tayong dalawang kinds, dalawang concentrations ng sodium citrate used in HEMA. Okay? Yung isa, yung 3.2% sodium citrate. At yung pangalawa, 3.8% sodium citrate. So, I want you to understand that the anticoagulant for the coagulation tests is not the 3.8% sodium citrate, but rather the 3.2% sodium citrate. Ito, no? Yung number 3 natin. Maliwanag? So, ito yung gagamitin natin ha para sa coagulation test. Kasi yung isa, yung 3.8% sodium citrate, ginagamit natin siya sa HEMA din, but for another purpose. So, later on, we are going to discuss it as well. But for the meantime, the focus of our attention would be 3.2% sodium citrate. Okay? Now, remember this also, the critical ratio between the anticoagulant and the blood, is 1:9. Okay? Now, somebody asked, Sir, ano po ba talaga ang tama, sir? Kasi sir, nung college po kami, ang tinuturo po ng mga prof namin, 9:1. 9:1 daw. 9:1. So, sir, ano po ba talaga, sir, ang correct? Is it 1:9 or 9:1? 1:9 or 9:1? Sabi ko, iha, depende yan, ano? Depende, no? Kasi class, tandaan, no? Pwedeng maiba yung sagot natin depende doon sa position ng words na anticoagulant and blood. Okay? Ganito ha. If the question is the ratio between the anticoagulant and the blood, then your answer must be 1:9. 1 pertains to the amount of the anticoagulant and the 9 pertains to the amount of blood. So 1:9 ang sagot. Kapag ang tanong, anticoagulant to blood ratio. Maliwanag ba? Ngayon, kung ang itatanong naman ay blood to anticoagulant ratio, ang tamang sagot, 9:1. 9:1. Malinaw ba? 9 pertains to the amount of the blood and 1 pertains to the amount of anticoagulant. Clear po ba? Okay? Kaya nga class, lagi kong sinasabi ha, sa mga board exam review, sa mga lectures na ganito, read the questions carefully. Huwag magmamadali, okay? Kasi minsan sa kakamadali natin, doon tayo nagkakamali, no? May mga students ako before, alam ko naman na nakapag-aral silang mabuti sa exam. Alam ko naman, no, nag-review talaga silang mabuti, pero because of a certain reason, nagkakamali pa rin sa pagsagot, no? And one possible reason could be nagmamadali kasi, no? Kasi may time limit yung exams, di ba? 2 hours, halimbawa, no, yung exams natin. So yung iba, natataranta, nagmamadali, no? Binibilisan yung pagsagot. Eh guys, pag medtech board exams, pag medtech ang exam, hindi pwede talaga yung nagmamadali palagi. Okay? Kasi class, pag nagmamadali ka, you might miss something. Baka meron kang word na hindi maintindihan, baka merong word na hindi ka makita. Nagigets ba ako? So, dapat, sa pagbabasa ng question, titingnan natin yung mga word components ng sentence or ng question itself so that we will be able to fully comprehend what is being asked. Maliwanag na. Okay? So, tandaan nyo yan ha. Very, very important. So, pag ang tanong ay anticoagulant to blood, anong sagot? 1:9. Pero kapag ang tanong ay blood to anticoagulant, anong sagot? 9:1. Okay? So, next bullet, what is the action of your 3.2% sodium citrate naman? Ang action naman niya, chelation of calcium. Chelation of calcium, which is similar to the action of EDTA. Similar to the action of EDTA. Malinaw? Okay. Now, don't forget to write this down as well. Yung mga important notes dito. Okay, so what is the color of the top of the tube that bears this anticoagulant? It is of light blue top. The 3.2% sodium citrate is found in the light blue top. And then also write this down, the number of inversions for the light blue top. How many inversions? 3 to 4 inversions. 3 to 4 inversions. My question to you is this. Guys, pwede bang sumobra more than 4 inversions? Pwede ba yun? No? No? Hindi pwede, ha? Basahin ang notes sa may bandang ilalim ng action. Meron diyang additional na note. Guys, pakibasa, ha? Anong nakalagay sa ilalim ng action? Anong nakalagay? Excessive number of inversions. Excessive number of inversions can activate the platelets and can shorten the clotting times. Okay? You see? Hindi po pwedeng more than 4 inversions. So, dapat maging stricto tayo dyan. Okay? After collecting the specimen, invert it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Tama na. Tama na. Hanggang 4 inversions lamang. Okay? Maliwanag na? Okay. And that is also the reason why, look at me, no? That is also the reason why you need to bring with you a phlebotomy kit containing a tray inside. Dapat meron kang tackle box, meron kang phlebotomy kit na naglalaman ng tray sa loob. Kasi that tray will make sure that your tubes will be standing upright, will be placed in an upright position all throughout the transportation process. What do I mean? Okay, ganito yan, ano? Halimbawa, nakakolekta ka na ng dugo. Okay, light blue top, ano? And then, na-invert mo na siya. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, tama na, di ba? 4 lang. Dapat, sa loob ng warding box mo, merong tray. Okay, merong tray kung saan dapat nakalagay yung mga tubes na yan. Okay? Dapat nakatayo sila doon sa loob ng tray. Okay? And guys, this will make sure that the tubes will not be shaken, no? This will make sure that there will be no excessive agitation, okay? Kasi if there is a tray, as you bring back these tubes to the laboratory, okay? As you bring back these tubes containing blood to the laboratory, the tray will make sure that they will not lie down, hindi sila matutumba, at hindi sila masishake. Naintindihan ba? Kaya importante ang tray. Alright? Okay. Pag halimbawa, ang kulit mo, no? Wala kang tray, no? Ang ginawa mo, binulsa mo lang sa lab gown. Okay? Sinot mo lang sa bulsa mo, no? O nilagay mo siguro sa pocket ng pants mo, no? Yung tube. What will happen? Matutumba yung mga tube and habang ikaw ay pabalik ng laboratory, masya-shake, no? Yung blood collection tubes na yan. This can cause errors already, no? In your coagulation test. Maliwanag ba? Okay, let me repeat, ha? Excessive number of inversions can activate the platelets and can shorten clotting times. That's why it is very important to follow the correct number of inversions. And likewise, importante din, ha, na magdadala ka ng tray in the blood collection process. Para hindi naman matutumba, hindi naman magla-lie down, no, yung mga tubes mo after the collection. Okay? So, also remember that it is used for coagulation tests. So, next naman, pag-usapan natin ngayon, ano po yung mga factors that can affect no, your coagulation test results. So, meron tayong sets of factors here. Dalawang sets yan. Okay, the first set are the factors that can shorten coagulation results. And the second set are the factors that can prolong coagulation test results. So, unahin na muna natin yung shorten, ha? Okay. So, ano po yung mga possible reason why there would be shortened coagulation results? Okay, one possible reason would be hemolysis. By the way, ang mnemonic natin ay HEPEP. Okay, our mnemonic is HEPEP. Okay, ang corny, no? Okay, wala na kasi may ibang maisip na ibang mnemonic, no? But remember this, HEPEP. Okay, letter H is hemolysis. Letter E is excessive agitation. O, yan ang sinasabi ko kanina pa, ha? Always bring a tray, a phlebotomy kit containing a tray with you para maiwasan ang excessive agitation. Ilan nga ulit dapat ang number of inversions lamang? 3 to 4. Okay, so 3 to 4 inversions lang. Okay, and then letter P right there is prolonged tourniquet application. Prolonged tourniquet application. And once again, let me ask you, what is the length of time for tourniquet application? Dapat less than 1 minute. And what are again the three effects of prolonged tourniquet application? HHS. HHS. Ano nga ulit ang mga yan? Hemolysis, hemoconcentration, and shortened coagulation times. O, di ba? Consistent? Hemolysis, hemoconcentration, and shortened coagulation times. Also, we have excessive needle manipulation. Excessive needle manipulation. Let me tell you something about that, no? Yung excessive needle manipulation na yan, that happens when we perform the so-called fishing o yung tinatawag din ng iba na searching of the vein. Fishing or searching of the vein. Fishing or searching of the vein. Okay? Nangyayari ang excessive needle manipulation in those instances. Okay? And para mas malinaw, let me tell you now what is that fishing or what is that searching of the vein is. Ano ba yan, no? And perhaps some of you have already experienced doing that, no? Okay? So, gusto ko malaman yung mali yun, ha? Huwag gagawin yung fishing o yung searching the vein na yan, ha? Mali yun. Okay, ganito yun, no? Para sa mga hindi pa nakakagawa nito, okay, yung mga kabanal-banalan dyan, okay, na hindi pa nagagawa ito ever, okay. So, paliwanag ko lang, ha? Okay, so halimbawa, ito yung antecubital fossa, na-cleanse na yung site, okay, na-cleanse na. And then, let's say, yung phlebotomist ready na mag-insert ng needle dun sa antecubital fossa. At yun na nga, no? In-insert na niya ang needle into the antecubital fossa. However, at that time, unsuccessful. Hindi niya na-hit yung vein. Walang dugo na pumasok sa hab ng syringe. He failed to hit the vein. Okay? Now, ang ginagawa sa fishing, o yung ginagawa doon sa fishing or yung tinatawag ng iba na searching of the vein, while the needle is still in the antecubital fossa, okay, in fishing or searching of the vein, ang ginagawa ni phlebotomist, nire-redirect, no? Yung needle, okay, doon sa antecubital fossa. Okay? Ini-insert niya yung needle in different directions. Okay? While that needle is still in the antecubital fossa, ha? Mind you, while still in the arm of the patient. Yan yung tinatawag na searching or fishing the vein. Okay? And ginagawa niya yan because he want to look for that missed vein. Okay? Now, why is this wrong? Bakit siya mali? Kasi po, no, as you insert the needle in different directions, the tissue factor already contaminates the needle. Nakuha ba? The tissue factor already contaminates the needle. And eventually, once you have already successfully obtained the blood of the patient, eventually that blood specimen will get contaminated too by that tissue factor. Maliwanag ba? Okay. And because of that contamination brought about by the tissue factor, what will happen is pwedeng mag-shorten ang coagulation times. Malinaw ba? Okay? So, wag gagawin yung fishing, wag gagawin yung searching the vein. Mali yan, no? Kasi pwede siya mag-cause ng shortened coagulation times. Okay? Because of the contamination of the tissue factor. Contamination brought about by the tissue factor. Clear po ba? Maliwanag? Okay, naintindihan ha? And guys, no, tandaan din na masakit ito para kay patient ha? It's painful, di ba? Ikaw ba naman tusok-tusukin ka, di ba? Masakit yon, di ba? And in the Philippines kasi class, in the Philippines, to be honest, most patients are forgiving naman, di ba? And sometimes, yung mga patient pa, ang nagbibigay ng excuse dun sa phlebotomist na sumasablay, di ba? Okay, narinig nyo na to siguro siguro in some instances, no? Ganito ang nangyari, no? Na-insert na ni Medtech yung needle, ano? Sablay, no? Tapos sasabihin ng patient sa kanya, ay, naku, hindi ka nakakuha. Naku, iha, pasensya ka na ha. Mahirap talaga akong kunan ng dugo. Sila pa humingi ng sorry, no? Okay? So parang nakakaya naman yun sa iyo, no, bilang phlebotomist. Pero ibang phlebotomist, no? Yung iba naman sinasakyan pa. Sasabihin ng ibang phlebotomist, next time kasi ma'am, uminom kayo ng maraming tubig. Uminom kayo ng maraming tubig, no? Kasi po pag dehydrated kayo, hindi po makakakuha ng dugo. Yes, no? May mangganyan, no? Okay? So, yung iba naman, no, ang sinasabi na naman nila sa mga patient nila, sasabihin nila sa patient, "Ma'am, kinakabahan ka ba?" Okay, so parang sinisisi pa yung patient, no? Next time kasi ma'am, relax lang. Yes, no? Para po hindi po umurong yung dugo nyo. Okay? Kasi nungalingan. Okay, hindi totoo yun, ha? Ang totoong kinakabahan yung medtech, yung phlebotomist, di ba? So, again, ha, sa Pilipinas kasi forgiving yung ating patient, eh. Pero guys, sa ibang bansa, halimbawa sa mga first world countries, pwedeng mareklamo ka, no? Because of that, no? Ayaw nila ng ganyan. Ayaw nila ng ganyan. Gusto nila one shot lang. Pag tumusok ka, dapat sigurado kang makakakuha ng blood specimen. Ayaw nila ng ganyan. Sa ibang bansa, ha? Most especially sa mga first world countries. Dito kasi sa Pilipinas, no? Mapagpatawad, no? Yung ating mga pasyente, forgiving, no? Kaya nga yung ibang mga patient, no? Naloloko, di ba? Yung ibang mga patient na abuso, yung iba nauuto, okay? Kasi kung ano pinagsasabi ng phlebotomist, okay? So, again ha, excessive needle manipulation. So, halimbawa sir, ano po, sumablay po kami, nag-fail po kami sa pag-extract ng blood specimen. O halimbawa sir, pagtusok namin sablay, hindi po namin na-hit yung vein. Ano po ang proper, ano po yung proper na next step? Ang gagawin mo dyan, okay, nag-fail, no? Ang gagawin natin dyan, we release the tourniquet, we plug the wound with cotton, carefully remove the needle, and then try another side. Okay? Apologize to the patient, of course. But, yun nga, no? In such instances, wag ka dapat mag-fishing, wag ka dapat mag-searching of the vein. Maliwanag ba? Clear po ba yon, no? So, pag halimbawa, sablay, hindi ka nakakuha, carefully release the tourniquet first, carefully withdraw the needle, and then try another side. Okay? Apologize to the patient and then try another side. Clear? Okay, so next, another letter P here is platelet contamination. Platelet contamination. So remember once again that all of these factors could affect your coagulation results, hemolysis, excessive agitation, prolonged tourniquet application, excessive needle manipulation, and platelet contamination. All of these things can shorten the coagulation results. Okay? So remember them always. Okay, and let's continue. Ano naman po yung mga factors that can prolong your coagulation values? The presence of clots is one, and increased anticoagulant concentration. So let's say you did not follow the ratio, no? Ano yung correct blood to anticoagulant ratio? Blood to anticoagulant ratio? 9:1. Blood to anticoagulant ratio, okay? Blood to anticoagulant ratio. So let's say you did not follow that, no? Tapos sabihin na natin underfilled yung tube, no? So pag underfilled yung tube, syempre magi-increase yung anticoagulant therein, di ba? So kung kulang yung dugo na nilagay mo doon sa light blue top, kung kulang yung blood pag underfilled, magi-increase yung anticoagulant, no? Than what is necessary. And because of that, this can also affect our coagulation result. It will prolong the coagulation results. So my point is always place the right volume of blood in your blood collection tubes. And my suggestion is para hindi tayo magkamali sa volume, para hindi tayo magkamali sa dami ng dugo na dapat ilagay sa loob ng blood collection tubes. Hindi lang ng light blue top ha, kundi lahat na rin ng mga blood collection tubes. My suggestion is mag-ano na lang po kayo, no? Mag ETS. You know ETS? ETS is evacuated tube system. I suppose naman yung iba sa inyo, ano na yan, no? Marunong na mag-ETS, di ba? And ang maganda kasi sa ETS, gagamitin mo na lang yung vacuum, di ba? Yung vacuum ng blood collection tube para ma-fill yung tube. So, hindi mo na siya kailangan i-transfer from the syringe to the tube. Kasi pag nag-transfer pa tayo, posibleng sobra or kulang yung dugo, di ba? So, para sure tayo na correct yung volume, I suggest no, na mag-ETS or evacuated tube system na lang. Kasi through that, vacuum lang yung inyong gagamitin, no? Saktong-sakto, no? Yung amount of blood na ilalagay ninyo sa loob ng blood collection tube. Okay? Yun naman ay suggestion lang, no? Kung gusto mag-syringe, hindi mag-syringe. Okay? O yun na lang gamitin niyo kung komportable kayo doon. Okay? So, again, that is for your 3.2% sodium citrate. And this is the last part, no, of our discussions for the yung tatlong primary topics natin for the anticoagulants. And to recap, ang mga diniscuss natin ng mga anticoagulants were 1, EDTA, and 2, heparin, and then 3, sodium citrate. Diba? Kung triplet yung magiging daughter mo, diba? Kung triplet yung magiging daughters mo someday, diba? Yung isa si EDTA Marie, yung pangalawa si heparin Marie, at yung pangatlo ay si 3.2% sodium citrate. Kasama sa pangalan yung 3.2% sodium citrate. Okay? Alright, so yan, no? Mga ano lang yan, mga suggestion. Okay? So next, let's continue now. Another topic na tayo. We have now the order of draw. This is also no, a possible board exam question. So pakiaral itong mabuti. And remember guys that the order of draw for the venipuncture, okay, must always be followed. Most especially if you're going to collect series of tube, di ba? It should be followed kasi ang iniiwasan natin dito, ang pine-prevent natin dito ay magkaroon ng contamination, okay, amongst the blood specimens, okay? Kasi pag hindi tayo nag-follow sa order of draw, pwedeng makaapekto yung hindi natin pagsunod sa quality, no, ng mga results natin sa lab, okay? So our mnemonic for the order of draw is BC-SHES. Our mnemonic is BC-SHES. 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 Okay, letter B, okay, pakisundan ha. Letter B is blood culture tube. Blood culture tube. And it is inverted for 8 times. 8 times. 8 ang number of inversions. 8. And then, it is your yellow tube, yellow top tube, okay? And then, your letter C naman, letter C, it stands for citrated tube. Citrated tube. And the number of inversions required for it is 3 to 4. As we all know, di ba? 3 to 4 inversions. And again, this is your light blue top. And then, your letter S naman, your letter S is your serum tube. Serum tube. And remember guys that the serum tube have 2 versions, okay? The first one is the red top made of glass, okay? And the other one is the red top made of plastic, okay? So kindly remember guys that if your red top is made of glass, it is a non-additive tube. And being so, dahil non-additive tube siya, 0 ang number of inversions for it. 0 yung inversions, okay? No inversion needed. Kapag ang red top ay non-additive, gawa sa glass, no inversion necessary, okay? Now, if your red top naman is made of plastic, it should be inverted for 5 times. Why? Because your red top made of plastic contains clot activator inside. It has a clot activator inside of it. May clot activator siya. Okay? And for that reason, dahil may mga clot activator dyan sa loob, for that reason, dahil may clot activator, kailangan imimix mo yung blood specimen to that clot activator. And yung mixing, magagawa natin yan by inverting the red top made of plastic. How many times again? Okay, 5 inversions. 5 times natin ini-invert yung ating blood collection tube. Okay? Yung red top na gawa sa plastic. Malinaw ba? Okay, yung red top na gawa sa plastic ha? 5 inversions. And then, we have also the heparinized tube. Heparinized tube class is inverted for 8 times. 8 times naman. And this is your green top tube as well. Okay? And then, we have also class your letter E. Okay, letter E class is your EDTA tube. And this is your lavender or your purple top tube, no? And let's say you don't have the lavender or the purple top tube anymore, you could also use pink top tube as the alternative, okay? Now, let me clarify something about that. So, tingin dito sa PowerPoint, please. Balikan ko lang ng konti itong ating lavender top. Okay. So, kanina, ating pong pinag-usapan ang EDTA, di ba? Yung lavender o yung purple top tube. And kanina, guys, no, hindi ko talaga binanggit, hindi ko talaga minention ang pink top tube at this area or at this slide of our PowerPoint. Why? Kasi po, meron pong statement na ganito sa ilalim. May nakalagay po na most commonly used blood collection tube in HEMA. Okay? So, I didn't place here the pink top tube. Okay? Hindi ko nilagay dito yung pink top tube kasi merong statement na ganito sa bottom part. Ayoko kasi kayo ma-confuse, no? Na ang pink top tube ay most commonly used din. No ha? No. Ang pink top tube ay alternative lamang dun sa lavender or purple top. O, halimbawa, no, hindi ka naka-order, hindi ka nakabili ng lavender top, maari mo ding gamitin yung pink top tube, no? For the test being done in EDTA, okay? As an alternative, no? Or as a replacement. Pwede mo gamitin ang pink top tube sa lavender, okay? Pwede mo gamitin ang pink top tube bilang replacement doon sa lavender or purple top tube. Clear? But if you're asked what is the most commonly used blood collection tube in HEMA, your answer should be lavender or purple top. Naintindihan na? That's why kanina hindi ko talaga binanggit yung pink top tube kasi may ganong statement sa ilalim. Inulit ko ha, pag tinatanong tayo what is the most commonly used in HEMA, still the correct answer is EDTA tube or the lavender or purple top tube specifically. Okay? So, the letter S naman in BCHS is sodium fluoride. Sodium fluoride. And remember, the sodium fluoride tube is inverted for 8 times. The sodium fluoride tube is inverted for 8 times, and this is your gray top tube as well. Gray top tube. Okay, so wag kakalimutan ha, BCHS. BCHS. Blood culture tube, citrated tube, serum tube, heparinized tube, EDTA tube, sodium fluoride tube. BCHS, okay? You know, dati, pinaquiz ko yan sa klase, no? Pinaquiz ko yan. And then, ang sabi ko, write down in a 1/4 sheet of paper, write down the correct order of draw for the venipuncture technique. And then, someone raised a hand. And then he asked, Sir, kailangan po ba in order ang sagot namin? Siyempre naman. Okay. Siyempre, kaya nga order of draw, di ba? Meron bang order of draw na hindi na nawala sa proper order? Of course, syempre, no, ang order of draw dapat laging in order. Kaya nga order of draw di ba? So again, remember yung BCHS na yan. So for the last part of our discussion here, we will discuss the other kinds of blood collection tubes that may be used in other sections of the laboratory or in HEMA also. Okay? So yung black top tube ang nangunguna. The black top tube contains, look at that, 3.8% sodium citrate. Na 3.2, okay? Ano nga pala yung color ng tube that bears a 3.2% sodium citrate? Anong kulay yon? Light blue top. Pag 3.2%, light blue top. Naalala? Samantala, yung black top tube naman, 3.8%. 3.8% sodium citrate. And remember also the ratio being followed here. Ang ratio naman natin ay 4:1. 4:1 para sa black top tube. It is the blood to anticoagulant ratio. Blood to anticoagulant ratio. And para saan ang black top tube? It is used for Westergren ESR. Westergren ESR. Okay? And then another is your pink top tube naman. Okay, pink top tube has a special cross-match table for patient information approved by AABB. And this is your K2 EDTA. Okay, this contains K2 EDTA or dipotassium EDTA. So it may be used for blood bank tests, pwede, no? But also may be used for whole blood hematology determinations. Just like what I've said, di ba? Pwede natin siyang gamiting alternative sa purple top or lavender top tube natin. Okay? And then the last in line is the light blue top tube. The light blue top tube may either contain 3.2% sodium citrate, which you are familiar with, and it may also contain CTAD anticoagulant. CTAD anticoagulant. Now, what is CTAD? What do these letters mean? Letter C is for citrate. Letter T is for your theophylline. Letter A is for adenosine, and D for dipyridamole. CTAD, citrate, theophylline, adenosine, dipyridamole. CTAD, citrate, theophylline, adenosine, dipyridamole. CTAD. Okay? Huwag kakalimutan ha, i-memorize ang meaning ng acronym na yan, no? And just in case you're curious, tama ba ang spelling ng dipyridamole? Tama ba, sir, na dipyridamole yan? Yes, correct na correct yan. Ilang beses ko nang chinek yan. Dipyridamole talaga. Correct yung spelling na yan. Dipyridamole talaga. Correct yan. Okay? And what for is your CTAD? The light blue top containing CTAD may be used for coagulation tests also. Pwede rin siya for coagulation tests, but it may also be used for platelet function assays. It may also be used for platelet function assays like platelet factor 4 and beta thromboglobulin assays. Okay? So, pakikopya, pakilagay na lang din sa notes. Okay? So, wag kakalimutan ha, yung ating light blue top, pwede siyang merong 3.2% sodium citrate, pero pwede ring ibang uri ng anticoagulant. Hindi lahat ng light blue top ay merong 3.2% sodium citrate. Hindi lahat. Some of the light blue top tubes contain CTAD instead. Okay, CTAD. And again, when you say CTAD, that stands for citrate, theophylline, adenosine, dipyridamole. Okay? So, huwag kakalimutan ha yung mga diniscuss natin for blood collection. And bilang panghuli no, sa bahagi na ito ng ating discussions, don't forget also to read about the different errors encountered in some hematology tests. Okay, so wala naman tayo pong idadagdag sa table na yan, but in your free time, kindly read them. Ano yung mga reasons for falsely high or falsely low results, no? Ano yung mga probable reasons, okay? Let me just point out one of the questions before. Puntahan natin klase yung table. Yung table about errors encountered in hematology tests. Nakita ba? Okay. So hanapin diyan ang hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin ha? In the past, ang question daw, ano daw po yung platelet count? Ano daw yung platelet count? Platelet count that can cause falsely elevated hemoglobin. Ano daw yung platelet count value that can cause that error? And the correct response, naka-bold sa handout sa inyo ha, the correct answer is a platelet count of greater than 700. Greater than 700 times 10 raised to the 9 power per liter. Yung value na yan ng platelet count ay pwede magdulot ng falsely elevated hemoglobin result. Okay? Now, binold ko na lang din sa ating handouts yung WBC count value naman that can cause the same. Okay? Ano naman po yung WBC count value that can cause falsely high hemoglobin? So, pag WBC count naman yung itinanong, pag yan naman ang lumabas sa board exams niyo, ito naman yung sagot. A WBC count of greater than 20,000 per microliter or greater than 20 times 10 raised to the 9 power per liter. Okay? So, ito po yung mga values na dapat yung tandaan ha para sa inyong board exams. Okay? And pakibasa pa rin yung iba pang mga parts ng table na yan, iba pang content ng table na yan. And also, can you read also the critical values that would require immediate communication. So, tabulated in your handouts are these values that are already alarming. These are values that are already critical, kumbaga, alarming na. Kasi ito yung mga values na pwedeng magsabi sa atin that the patient is already at a life-threatening state, no? Life-threatening condition na yung nararanasan niya. So, kapag may mga ganyang values na na-observe sa laboratory, we must inform the physician of the patient immediately. Okay? Para masagip yung buhay, para ma-save yung life ng patient who demonstrated, not that these abnormal values in the laboratory. Okay? So again, these are the critical values that would require immediate communication. So that's it. Natapos na natin yung first part ng ating lecture. And let's take a short break muna before we continue with the next part. All right, guys. So take your 2-minute break, 2 minutes, and then after that, we are going to start with the new lesson. 2 minutes.